Northwestern Chronicles, Episode 32, The Ulfstead Jewel. At the docks, a special package had arrived. The Earl of Sodor had gathered many people from all across the island for an important announcement. That same day, Thomas was pulling around his coaches Annie and Clarabelle. It had been a long day, and he was looking forward to visiting the docks. But when Thomas arrived, he discovered the docks was packed. Bulstrode had just departed, and Cranky was unloading a large package into Salty's cargo car. Thomas noticed a large group of well-dressed people with cameras and papers. Leading the group was Sir Topham Hatt, Richard Hatt, and the Earl of Sodor, Sir Robert Norrby. As Thomas pulled into the docks, Sir Topham Hatt drew everyone's attention to him and his coaches.
Thomas, right on time as always. Earl, I'm sure you know my number one engine, Thomas the Tank Engine.
Why, of course I do. He's helped Stephen and I quite a bit at Ulfstead Castle.
Hello, Your Grace, said Thomas. Pleasure as always. Sir, if I may ask, what's with all the pomp and pageantry? This package doesn't look any special.
That is an excellent question. As a matter of fact, I think the Earl is going to make an announcement right now. The esteemed Earl began as Thomas and his coaches waited in bated breath. Ladies and gentlemen, fine people of Sodor, the United Kingdom, Europe, and the world, I'm very pleased to inform you that the most spectacular Ulfstead Jewel has been returned to Sodor. Some of the members of the audience began to cheer and clap. Yes, continued the Earl, after years of being stowed away in London, this precious gem, stored in this crate, will return to Ulfstead Castle. The jewel is incredibly expensive, and I, being the head of the Ulfstead estate and the dignitary noble of this great isle, have been entrusted to ensure its relocation. The audience once again cheered for the charismatic Earl. Thanks to Whiff here, the jewel will be brought to my estate on the far side of the island, where it will be available to see for yourself at the museum at my estate. So please, stop by Ulfstead Castle and see the jewel for yourself. The Earl boarded Whiff, and he sped off with the jewel. The Ulfstead Jewel? I didn't know there was such a thing. Indeed there is, replied Sir Topham Hatt. What's the story behind it, sir? The Earl mentioned something about London. Ah, well, a long time ago, before locomotives were on Sodor, a rare jewel was gifted to a nobleman by the King of England. That nobleman built an estate here on Sodor, stored the jewel in his castle, and one of his descendants became the Duke of Sodor. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before the jewel was stolen during an armed conflict in Britain. Until recently, its location was unknown, when some officials in London found it in an abandoned palace. So that's why the jewel is so important to the Earl. It belonged to one of his ancestors, and now it's finally been returned after all these years. Precisely. And now that it is here, Sodor will see people from around the world coming here to see the jewel. Anyways, Thomas, you should probably be on your way with your train. I'll see you later. Right away, sir, said Thomas, and he quickly puffed away. Later that day at Timmis Sheds, Thomas told all of his friends about the Ulfstead Jewel. All of them were enamored with it, and Thomas hoped that one day he would be able to visit Ulfstead Castle and see the jewel for himself. The next day, Thomas arrived at Knapford Station. There was Linda Packard, Sir Topham Hatt's secretary. Ah, yes, hello, Thomas. I'm sorry, but Sir Topham Hatt couldn't be here. He's at a pressing meeting. No worries, replied Thomas. It's nice to switch it up once in a while. Well, that's good to hear. Anyways, it's just your usual schedule, with one twist. The Fat Controller, or the Director, wants you to tour the Ulfstead estate. He's organized a special arrangement with the Earl. Thomas was ecstatic. Great. Now I could tell the engines at the shed something tonight. Well, you'll have to pull your train first, laughed Linda. Right away, ma'am, replied Thomas. At the stops along the way, Thomas continued to dream about the Earl's precious jewel. When he came to the turntable, the engines there were also curious about the jewel. The Ulfstead Jewel was a big thing on Sodor. When Thomas finally arrived at Ulfstead Castle, he stopped so the passengers could enjoy the view. The Earl was there as well. Hello, Thomas, the Earl shouted from the top of his castle. Thanks for coming.
I hope you can see the jewel all right.
No problem, sir. Thanks for letting me see it myself.
The jewel shined from inside the castle. The gate had been opened, and the platform carrying the jewel had been pushed forward, allowing Thomas and the passengers to witness the jewel for themselves. The shiny jewel glistened in Thomas's eyes. He was mesmerized. Throughout the week, engines from across the Northwestern Railway arrived at Ulfstead. People from around the world came to see the Earl's estate and the beautiful jewel. One night, the engines at Tim's sheds were discussing the jewel once again. "Yes, the jewel is quite splendid, I must admit," said Gordon. "I'm sure the Earl and the Fat Controller are most pleased." Toby chimed in. "Profits aside, it's nice to have something everyone can appreciate." Trevor and George were there. "Yep," said Trevor. "I bought some of the vicar's Sunday school children to see it. They seemed to like it, too." It seemed everyone on Sodor had seen the Ulfstead Jewel, and for those who hadn't, it would only be a matter of time. That night, the Earl was preparing to depart Ulfstead Castle. "Don't worry, Stephen. I'll be back first thing in the morning. You know how important this meeting is to the museum." "I understand, sir," replied the old engine. "I'll do my best to protect the castle." "Very good, Stephen," laughed the Earl. "Come along, Whiff. I don't want to be late to dinner with the Hykemans at Knapford." The Earl climbed inside Whiff, and they left Ulfstead Castle. Ulfstead Castle was silent after the Earl left in Whiff. Who knew it could get so lonely around here? Suddenly, a wave of exhaustion collapsed on Stephen. I'm sure His Grace wouldn't mind if I got a little shut-eye." And Stephen the Rocket dozed off. Oh, what the... Hey, what are you doing? Where's the jewel? Hey, get back here. Stop. 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 Where did he go? There's nobody here. It's just buffers. Excuse me, did you two see anything? Oh, yes, we were quite startled by some engine carrying some sort of boxcar, it seemed. Oh dear, this is not good at all. The following morning, the Earl discovered that the jewel was gone, and he reported the sad news to Sir Topham Hatt and the engines at Knapford Station. "Well, perhaps I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry for getting you all mixed up in this." "What do you mean?" replied the Fat Controller. "I knew it was dangerous to keep the jewel on Sodor rather than in London. By bringing the jewel here, I suppose I unintentionally put you all in danger. Well, I think you did the right thing. I'm sure it'll turn up eventually. Well, anyways, that's enough about me. I think I've learned my lesson for the day, and I'm sure you all have as well." The Earl sighed. "I think we should all get back to work. Good day, everyone." "I agree with the Earl. Although this is unfortunate, I believe you should all return to your jobs for the day." All the other engines had departed, leaving Stephen and Thomas alone at the station. "Sorry to hear about the jewel," said Thomas. "At least nobody got hurt, though." "Very true, Thomas. I believe we should follow the Earl's advice. Let us return to our work." And so the legend of the Ulfstead Jewel lived on.